So it's interesting. I'm sure this saying has been said before, but I feel like I need to say it. This is tough love. After reading certain comments that have been written in, I feel that as a good coach and as a friend and as a sister, it's important for me to deliver what I'm going to share with you with some tough love. And I ask that you receive it knowing that my intention is to only serve you. My intention is only to move you into action. My intention is ultimately to help you find your true self, your true north, okay? And everyone's true north in some way, shape, or form is through happiness, is the sense of freedom. And it is in a sense of living into the truest, fullest expression of who you are and who you're meant to be in this lifetime. And as a coach, this is what I want for each one of you. It's what I want for myself. It's what I believe is my gift to help you to go to the next level so that you're reminded of that truth.
Welcome to the Danette May Show, where you'll receive profound breakthroughs, courage to break old patterns, and live into your soul's purpose. Each week, I will bring you epic guests and live coaching to remind you of your power. You have the ability to achieve extraordinary things, and the time to start is now.
So I told you that we were going to talk about mental abusive relationships. Mental, physical, spiritual abusive relationships. Now, if you guys feel called to do so, will you leave a 1 if you've been in one of those so that we know we're not alone? And even if you have never been in a spiritual, emotional, physical, abusive relationship, you're going to gain wisdom from this. And I believe most of us have, whether it's been from a sibling or a parent or a friend or a spouse or a boss or someone in our lives. We've all experienced this. I actually believe my children bump into this at school with friends on the daily. People that are not maybe even friends, but choose to use their voice to inflict pain on them, right? To say, oh, you look ugly today. Or to say, oh, you're dumb. Those are physical and emotional abuse that can take their place inside the cellular DNA of who we are. And today I want us to become aware of stories that we have taken on from the person who's trying to inflict pain. We have basically taken on their pain, and it's time to let it go. It's time to let it go. Because here's what I hear from a lot of people. I want to grow, Danette, but I haven't really fully stepped into it. So I haven't fully received what I needed to receive. What did you hear in that sentence? It wasn't that you didn't receive what you were meant to receive, it's that you didn't grab a hold and take it. And I believe this with every person in this world, with everything going on in the world. Now, this is where my tough love comes into place, because I'm talking about the people who are crying about financial devastation. And then there's an opportunity that's coming their way, and they're so in their devastation, they can't even see the opportunity in front of them. I'm talking about the person who cries about not having a relationship or feels like, oh, I'm just the weird one who can't have this loving, amazing relationship. And they're bumping into people all the time that are a great frequency match, but you can't even see it because you're still in all the rumination that you can't have an amazing, powerful relationship, or it's just not in the cards for you. I see this with health, obviously, all the have I want to lose I want to release XYZ amount of weight. I want to feel good. I want to have more energy. I want to play with my grandbabies. I want to do that one thing that I always wanted to do, but my weight got in the way. And then I'm here and my programs are here and all of the answers are in front of you, but you haven't grabbed a hold of them, right? But you stay in the cycle of believing that the solution isn't there. And what other solution can I grab? I'm speaking to you, and this is your chance to turn it around. This is your chance to be honest with yourself and to get real and say, actually, the answers have been here. That grab a hold, that rope, that life preserver was thrown down to me. Because a lot of you are swimming around, and I see this in humans all the time. They're out in the ocean, per se, like a metaphorical ocean. And a lot of them are like, I only took like 2 weeks of swim lessons when I was 4 or when I was 1, and I can barely keep my composure in this ocean. And there's some people that are like, oh, I had swimming lessons for 1 year, but man, I'm not very good to keep treading out here for months or years or a lifetime. Right? And there's some of you who are like, I'm a pro swimmer, but you know what? These oceans are wild. These waves are big. Life is big, and the ocean is life. And you're asking source energy, you're asking God, you're asking the universe, you're saying, I need help. I need basically a life preserver just so I can catch my breath, just so I can learn one new stroke to keep me out here longer, just so I can, swim up to the bigger boat. And what happens? You asked, the life preserver gets thrown out there, and you're like, I'm actually too busy to grab a hold of it. I'm too busy. Sorry, I asked for it, but I'm just too busy. And you believe this story that you're busier than everyone else. Yes, I believe you're busy, but so is everyone else. And some of you are like, oh, actually, I'm gonna throw it back. I'm gonna throw it back because it's really kind of fun for me to actually kind of call out and get attention. And so I'm actually getting a lot of preservers thrown at me, but I just keep throwing them back. And some of you, and we've seen these in funny memes and GIFs out there, are literally got preservers all around you, but you're thrashing and you're in this panic that you can't, the water's just going up all around you. And you're like, can't even see all of them around you because you're thrashing around so much. So let me just tell you right now that every single person who has tuned into these videos, they don't have to be live. But whether you tuned into them on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday morning, or that time when you were out for a walk because you know that's good for you, and you tuned in and you just listened, I know you've gotten what you've needed. I know you learned that extra stroke. I know you've got a hold of that life preserver and just held on for a minute to catch your breath. Some of you climbed into the boat. Some of you are like, hey, what's next? I'm in the boat now. I'm ready to throw out my own life preserver to people. So the first step here, when we talk about mental, physical, emotional abuse, is to recognize that the life preserver is already out. The life preserver is already out. How do we know that it is the life preserver I need? Girl, this is what gets you caught up all the time, isn't it? A life preserver is a life preserver, sweetheart. It keeps you afloat. It gives you a moment to stroke. It gives you a moment to catch your breath. That's another thing. That's another huge analogy that I see happening all the time. And think like, I actually wanted a blue preserver. I actually wanted it to be triangle shaped and it's round. I don't think I want it like that. I don't really want it like that way. Oh, there's a little moss on the top. It feels a little slimy. I don't want to grab a hold of it. It's a life preserver. Whether it's delivered to you at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 a.m., midnight, it's a life preserver. It's a life preserver. The life preserver doesn't always come at convenient times. I've always told you and always told myself, and this is what I know from anyone who has climbed up onto the boat, per se, of life, is that conviction and convenience do not live on the same block. Transformation isn't meant to be convenient. Transformation isn't also meant to feel really good and easy. When we start to get super honest with ourselves when we're on the road of transformation, it can actually be the darkest, hardest moments in our life. It's when we start to really introspect of how we are responsible for how we got to where we are in this moment. When we truly turn into that time, is actually some of the darkest hours of your day, of your life. Because you start to see how your choices, how you showed up, got you to where you are right now. So the dark comes before the dawn. And so many of us want to skip the darkness, want to skip the hard part, want to skip the transformation, the evolution. You think of the butterfly coming out of the cocoon. You think of the eggs hatching, and I did a coaching call on that, and I watched baby ducks hatch from their eggs, and I watched them struggle almost to their death to get out of the egg. These little babies that barely can like move their wings, and they're pecking at the egg, and you just want to go in and like just open the egg a little bit for them, but you realize you can't do that, because if you do, then they will die, because their strength, because their aliveness is built in the struggle. And we are trying often to avoid that struggle, that swim. Keep pecking, keep working. Take whatever life preserver gets thrown at you. You'll know when it's a life preserver when it feels in vibration of love. There's a lot of false life preservers that are getting thrown out to us. I see it in the fitness industry. People are saying, oh, I have what I can help you with, but they're actually deflated, and if you were to get on it, you would sink. You know those life preservers, the deflated ones, right? Or business coaches, but they are broke as a joke and they're bankrupt, but they're not telling anyone, and they're putting on the thing that they're the coach. How you will know if it's the right preserver is it will feel like love. It may not be what you want to hear, it may not be convenient, it may not be comfortable, but it will feel like love. So it may not seem what you're thinking I'm going to talk about when I talk about mental and emotional and spiritual abuse. But the first thing is that so many of you are feeling extremely bitter, extremely sad, extremely grieving from the incident that caused the abuse. Can you see where I'm going here? If you're in the feeling of feeling bitter, angry, resentment, hatred even, you are not free. And that can be the very tether that's keeping you from growing and rising and living into your fullest vibration, which is freedom, which is happiness, which is full expression. But if you're tied to bitterness, you're tied to anger, resentment from that incident, it's going to keep you from going up. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, am I feeling angry or resentment from this incident? And I'm going to go a second step. Am I letting that story that was told to me still play in my mind today? We hear this in really subtle ways with people that, well, they were told they maybe had big ears or a big nose when they were little, and then they, as adults, they keep their hair down, they don't show their ears, or they just say, oh, I have a big nose, and people are like, what are you talking about? I've seen on social media people post up and be like, I've never once wanted to take a picture like this because of my, and they don't say what it is, and they're like, it's always been a problem for me. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And then they'll go, my ears. And I'm like, I didn't even notice your ears. I had no clue about your ears. You know? But you are so fixated on it. It's a story from the past being said to you. Some of you have this story around not being smart enough. So therefore, you don't know enough about business. You don't know enough about XYZ. That's a story from the past. It's so not true. And so can you look at this and own where you've taken on the story, where you've taken on anger or resentment? And sometimes we don't even have anger or resentment. We just have just taken on the story and said that that is belief. But to me, if you really believe in a higher being or a higher source energy, then that is like the farthest away you can move from them, when you take on these false beliefs that are not true about yourself, about your magnificence. And you might be asking me, how do I remove this anger or this story or this resentment? Jeanette, I get that I have it, and I get that I have to remove it to rise. How do I do that? How do I do that? First step, I just said, you have to own your responsibility in it. And by owning your responsibility that you got where you are today, or you got into that relationship, whether it was with a job or a friend or a spouse, if I'm talking about abuse that's quite recent, you have to own that maybe your past beliefs about yourself, where you were in low vibration about yourself, attracted someone like that. So you get to acknowledge and say, I actually attracted that. I see that I didn't really love myself. I didn't value who I am. I wasn't in alignment with source energy. So of course I attracted exactly what I believe I'm worthy of. And I'm growing with Jeanette. I'm growing in this other coaching stuff. I'm growing with nutritional and healing foods. And I'm seeing now, and I'm getting out of these relationships, but I haven't plucked that last thread, right? Of that last thread of like feeling anger and resentment. And it's because you haven't really fully owned your role in all of this. And now when we fully own our role, I'm not gonna say that feels really good. It's not like you're like, oh, I fully owned it, now I can be free. When we fully own, oftentimes it can get really dark. And I'm gonna share a little bit about my story, right? Where this came up. So after I lost my son and I was going through my divorce that was not pretty, was not in compliance with my religion, not in compliance with any of my local circle of friends. You do not get divorced. I felt so out of alignment, right? I felt so like I was doing everything that was against everyone that was in my immediate circle. So I felt very, very alone, right? And I thought that was hard. But then when I realized I actually created all of it. I even created my son passing. I created these experiences. I am the co-creator. You are the co-creator. And it's okay to own that. It's okay. It's scary. It doesn't feel good. But when I did, it got darker before it got lighter. Because then I started to go, wow, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I see where that was a moment when I knew that was out of alignment, but I kept going down that road because I didn't have enough confidence in myself. I didn't have enough love for myself. So I had to fully own it, right? All these different decisions where I didn't show up, where I didn't stand up, where I didn't say this, where I didn't do this. And it got really dark. I got really dark first. And then you go through the process of forgiveness. Right? And we've talked about this. You guys have read my book. If you haven't read my book, it's right there. You should get it. Because then you got to go through the process of forgiving the person, even the person who said you had big ears or that you were dumb or that you're stupid or you stink. Even those little ones, forgiving because they were just not feeling good about themselves. Hurt people hurt people. Can you forgive someone who's just been hurt and had a bad day and said awful things? Sure. Those ones are easier, but if you have a recent abusive thread that just happened in your life, or maybe he's a couple years old or whatnot, you're still fresh. And for you to expect that you should be out of it now, it's not being fair to you. You're still not showing up in full love for yourself. My forgiveness journey with my ex was 5 years. 5 years, and I still have to work on it. It's just not as potent. It's just not as tied anymore. But it was 5 years. And that's me working on it every single day. So can you take a deep breath for a moment? If you're in it, you're in this like, I'm kind of angry. Just give yourself a little grace. Say, I'm gonna own how I got myself here. And then 2, I'm gonna start to move into forgiveness. Forgiveness for the person or the thing or the act or whatever happened. And then 2, 3, you have to forgive yourself because you got yourself there. And that's okay too. I believe every destiny that you each have, you will get there. Some of you might go this way and get there. Some of you might climb up a mountain and get there. Some of you are digging holes to get there. You're gonna get there. You're gonna get there. It just might take a little longer, but you're gonna get there. Okay. What is the change that you need to see for you to feel like you've progressed? I want you to write that down. For those of you who are trying to stay into higher vibration, trying to forgive someone, trying to remove your energy from something that's toxic, it doesn't matter where you're at. Whatever the situation is irrelevant. You know what it is. What is the change you need to see? What do you need to see that will show you that you've actually made progression on it? Can you write that down? I'm going to give you a second because I think we're going to do this now. I want you to write it down. What is the change you need to see? Then I want you to write out, what is the perception you would like to see? For example, one, you were going to write about what is the change? What is something that could happen that makes you feel like was progression? And then now I want you to write out what would be the ideal end scenario for you. Your frequency at that time before that relationship, no question, no doubt, your love for yourself was not in the highest vibration. So you attracted someone who's abusive, whether it's mentally, physically, emotional, because your love for yourself was not there. We only attract what we feel. For those of you, Julie, you just said, I always used to say I was a loser magnet, right? Like, whether you think it, you say it, that's what you're gonna attract. If you say that, you believe that, you will attract that. If you don't love yourself and you have not learned to get centered in yourself, you will attract that. So I beg to differ that the first 3 years were magical. It's just that your vibration, obviously all relationships are quite magnificent the first year, and then it's like, what happened? I feel like I don't even know this human being. This is in every relationship, even the relationships that are still together that we all go, oh my gosh, they seem like the perfect couple. Oh my gosh, the first year is like magic because you're just making love all the time and it's all new and it's all fresh. But that's not reality. I mean, it's reality, but it's not, it's like it requires work. And if you haven't vibrationally matched with someone who's willing to do the work, who's willing to look at themselves, to do self-development work, then your frequency is not going to stay contained. And you start to feel this love for yourself. Either what's going to happen, so listen closely, listen very closely. One of two things is going to happen when you step into more self-love. Once you've already been in a relationship, one of two things. One, that person will adjust, your external environment will shift and change to match your internal. So many of us are trying to shift our external and trying to manipulate the external, and it's getting us frustrated and it's making us angry, when all we needed to do is drop in, start to fill our own cup up, start to pour some love on us, start doing loving meditation, start working on the inside of you, and then the external starts to match up with that frequency of you. You notice your relationships getting better. You notice that your spouse is treating you differently. I've also read those testimonies where they're like, my husband's treating me better. I'm starting to eat better. I'm starting to do more loving things. And then, oh my gosh, he's buying me a blender and he's like making me healthy things and he's like telling me I look good. That can happen. Beautiful. Congratulations, but both are beautiful, right? That's beautiful. But then the second thing could happen as well. The things that are no longer in your frequency match will move away from you. They will leave you. They will dump you. They will be so mean to you, you have no choice but to walk away from them. And that is also a massive, massive blessing. And what I often see when someone has been abusive and or not nice or not even in alignment at all, and this relationship that you were once in and they decide to leave, it's like you're like, wait, come back, because you're still in this self-love journey. And you're not recognizing that that is your gift. They walked away. They walked away so that you could be free to attract only what's in your vibration.